Hello, I'm in my studio at home again, and I'm thinking about a new fall project. It's, end of summer, and I love capes, and I have this pattern. This one. I'll just my plant in the way. I scored a vintage coat cape last year. It's quite heavy and long. It's good for cold weather, but I was hoping to make something more fall weather. Because I'm back to being able to walk to the studio. Didn't really tell you guys, but I had a bit of an issue with my foot and I couldn't walk for a good portion of the summer. Not the summers are long here. So I wasn't able to walk very much, but it seems to be on the mend, so now I can walk. So I have this wool. So in the old city where I lived and my old studio, somebody showed up 12 or 15 years ago and gave me several bins of fabric. I can't remember if they were a neighbor of the woman or a relative of the woman. They were cleaning out her house, and it was nice fabric, and the woman knew that I sewed and she didn't know what to do with it, so she brought it in and I said, sure. And to my great surprise, it was full of silk and wool and in lovely colors, beautiful fabrics in like jades and turquoises and purples. And I love those colors. I still have quite a bit of the silk peau de soie and charmeuse left to make blouses with. I've made the purple, and I'll eventually show you. Maybe I'll wear it. It's a bit warm. Silk tends to be warm. It's a sueded silk, sometimes called peach silk, I've heard it called. So it has a very suede kind of texture to it. Anyway, long story short, what I want to do is use this gorgeous purple, but it's a little bright. I'm not a huge fan, unless it's red, of really bright outerwear or like pumpkin orange or something really unusual for bright. I like this purple, but I've avoided making anything with it for years and years and years because it's a worsted. It's heavier than suit, so it's definitely lightweight outerwear. You can see, 100% wool. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm thinking of dyeing it. And I've done quite a bit of dyeing over the years, so I think I might give it a try with this. I guess I'll look on the dye company that I like to use, which has been locally bumped out the other one I used to use, but they have an online source of giving great dye colors. I'm not going to say their name because they don't, I don't know if I'm going to use it yet. So if I use it, then maybe I'll say what color I used and how I used it. It's different because I'm not starting with white fabric or like a cream fabric. I'm starting with purple. So I have to look at their color charts and try to decide how I'm going to do it. And then the dye can't be really opaque, so I have to do some testing. I think I have about 4 meters here, but I need 3.5 for that. It's also unlined. I'm a little bit unlined because my skin's a bit sensitive to wool, but then I'm unlikely to wear it with short sleeves. So I have no idea. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be a flying disaster, but if it works, look at the hood. Look at how cute that is. I usually have decent success with McCall's patterns. I've been using them since I started sewing. I think the first time I used a pattern like this, I might have been 10. I think I made PJ bottoms. Because I think the first thing I made, they had... Anyway. So I'm going to look up some colors and see, and then maybe go to the store and get some dye, and then I probably won't dye it today, and then we'll go from there and see what happens. Maybe. Who knows? So I went to the store yesterday to get the dye, and the color chart that I really liked had it saying that it would have been the purple, which is similar to the original purple of my fabric, and that the navy would be the color that goes with it. So you're cutting, I'm hoping to cut the purple down with navy. Except for apparently everybody and their uncle is making tie-dye this summer, and it's the only place in town to get it, and they didn't have navy. So I have the same brand in a charcoal gray. So I did a tester today where I did a really, really light application into a tester. I'm letting the wool dry to see how it is. I also have to do it in cold water because it's wool. There's no mordant in it. I'm just sort of testing to see if this really light touch will cut the purple down a little. I also thought in a pinch I could re-dye it after I make it because it's not lined. I was only maybe going to do some bias tape on the seams maybe. I hadn't decided on the inside finishing yet. So I guess we'll see how it turns out and we'll go from there. Who knows? I am using RIT dye for wools here, and I'm visually assessing the percentage of the dye to water. I'm not very scientific, and it's a method I learned in art school for mixing paints and inks. I use strips of white paper to give me an idea of the color and its intensity. I know I'm dyeing over purple, but the white lets me see the opacity of the dye that I'm using. It's important to wet your fabric and leave to soak thoroughly submerged for the same amount of time you intend to do the final product. I planned on a longer than instructed soak because I'm using cold water instead of hot. After rinsing thoroughly, I look at the fabric in a good light, but it's hard to tell, so I gauged my success on the bright yellow stitching at the selvage. Otherwise, you'd have to dry the fabric and see how it turned out. On to the big dye bath. Put some old clothes on, and I used a tub out on my back porch and filled it with enough cold water to cover. If using hot water, I recommend doing this in your bathtub or shower for easy dumping and rinsing. Again, I'm estimating the amounts of everything here. Don't add the dye at the beginning of filling, since you don't want to make foam, which can happen with some dyes. I tested the bath with strips of paper and compared them to the previous strips, and it seemed okay. I forgot to wet my fabric, so I spent a long time making sure the fabric was thoroughly saturated. I soaked the wool for a total of 2 hours, stirring every half hour, then I rinsed with the hose. I hung it on the line, being careful to use many hanging points and clips so the weight was evenly distributed. I also rinsed it again when it was on the line. That was a lot. Whew, that's a lovely light. So I just dyed 4-ish meters of really wide wool and hung it up on the line and hosed it all off, and I'm crossing my fingers that there isn't going to be a major storm tonight. It's pretty hot, bugs are all out, so I'm getting eaten, but I hope it comes out the right color. My little paper samples didn't come up quite dark enough compared to my tester vat, but that also had been sitting for 24 hours. I'm not sure if that makes a difference. I guess we just wait and see until tomorrow, and hopefully it won't stretch. I was really concerned about that, and we'll see. Fingers crossed. Hello. Okay. Hi. So I have dyed the wool. It's really difficult. I didn't want to go outside because it would blow out all the color. I did cut a sample before I dyed it. It doesn't really look that different, but if I put down, this is the original color. And then this is the test that I did. Slightly different because I was able to control the dye better with this one, but I was really measuring the yellow to see that it did come out really similar. So this is the original. This is what it was originally. I don't know if this is what I had in mind, but I don't hate it. I like it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and make the cloak now. I guess now I cut out. Yay! Cutting out this pattern was a challenge, but all I ever do is rough cut, so enjoy my struggling. I cut out the cape, making sure I was on grain so it would fall properly. I followed the instructions for this cape, but here is a tip. Make V-shaped cuts on the interior or concave curves to lessen the bulk. When turned inside, it will lay smooth. Don't forget to press. I decided to pink all of my unbound seams to not add bulk and also so I could top stitch. Press open and top stitch. Hello. Okay, so I have got the body of it put together. I'm going to turn it around because what I decided to do, and one of the things you can do, is to do the pinking on your salvages, on your seam allowances, and then top stitch, as you can see. But this has this back belt. So what I needed to do was make sure that the top stitching didn't go, so I can do this with one hand, didn't go over top of it, because it would be really weird because this little decorative belt is sewn into the seam allowance. So what I had to do was, as I was stitching, you can see here, I had to just sort of move it and then just continue the stitching and then pull it out from underneath the foot of the machine as I was doing it. Now, because I'm just following the instructions, I'm not really, that's about the only thing I did that's not necessarily in the instructions. So you can see that I also stitched down this here. You can actually see my chalk still. So I stitched that down, and then when this gets some buttons on it, and it sits differently. So before I get on to the collar and the hood, which is the next step, and all the facing, I wanted to see if I needed to go get some buttons, because if I did, I needed to drive to the next city, which is about a half an hour away, to get buttons. So I looked at my collection, and I just wanted to show you, this is, don't mind my laundry, this is a collection of buttons I had. These, I have about 1 billion of them. And then there's these purple ones, and they're quite big. You're only supposed to put about a 5/8 or 1 inch, 2.5 centimeter button. There's these vintage ones, which are a little smaller. And then these are Bakelite. And then there's only 3 of these. They're quite heavy though, and they have metal in them. You can see how the metal's a bit funny. Oh, wait, there. You can see how the metal's a bit funny. So I was trying to decide. Now you're supposed to put 5 down the front and 2 on the back. And I was like, nah, it's all right. And I liked these, but there's only 3. So everything else would either be tacked in place with no further buttons. You should have a button, I mean the facing's not in, lines up with just about the pocket, because it's about your hip level to keep it closed. And then I'd have 1 here, and then I'd have 1 here. So there would be 3, and then I'd have to do some snaps that you don't see. These I liked, but then this is very, very yellow, and it's just not quite the right thing. These are a little, you know. So I think what I really liked, now these came from a coat, not my coat, they came from another coat. There's 5 of these. So what I'm going to do is put 3 down the front, and because they're quite big buttons, you can space them out a little farther. And I'm going to put a snap, a nice juicy snap up here, so it can snap shut. And then the buttons will be evenly spaced here. And then on the back, we'll be able to have the decorative buttons, which I really like. So I'm going to continue on with that. So that is the buttons. I think I decided on the purple ones, the big purple ones. And then I'm going to move on with the collar and the hood, and I think it'll be done. Next step was to sew on those big buttons, making sure I made a shank of thread. The last step before final pressing is to make 2 French tacks at the collar to keep it in place. Well, that was worth all the work. Highly recommend that you make yourself a cape. I'm really happy with the way that the color turned out. I'm really happy with the inside line. I'm just going to show you. Even though it got a bit wobbly because you bias tape it. And then you stitch the bias tape on, but because it's curved, it got a little wobbly on me. And it created some bulk I wasn't too thrilled about, but kind of steamed itself out. I hand stitched the hem so it would sit nicely. I'm happy with the way my seams are because they're not drawing attention to themselves on the inside, because this sort of bias tape pocket detail thing was part of the pattern. And in the inside of the pocket flaps. So happy about that. And the collar and my little French tacks, and it fits really nicely on my shoulder, and I've been wearing it to walk to work most of the week because it's been really cool and I got a lot of really weird looks, but you know, whatever. And I'm very happy also with my welts. I'm not very good at welts. There's welts on the pockets, and then there's welts on the, put your arms through. There's welts here. I'm not very good at them, but you know, I try. Half the time it's because the markings don't really line up, all the pieces and the markings don't line up really perfectly, and then you try and I based and it still sort of doesn't work, and anyway, I'm really glad I made it, and I think I might make one maybe in the spring that's more of a waterproof material. I might go look at the waterproof materials they have, or water resistant materials, because this would be a really cute like green poncho. And I really like the hood, so I bought myself in the face. I keep having like struggles because I've been wearing this big over the shoulder, I call it my adventure bag, because it holds all sorts of stuff when I walk to the studio. But I have to remember it has to go under the cape before I put the cape on, so I'm having a lot of problems. But if you can find this pattern, you should do this pattern. It was really cute, and yeah, I hope you liked watching me make this and learned a little bit about dyeing. And I hope you try a cape one time for yourself, because it was actually really easy, and it's a lot of fun to wear and nice, because I think it's been anywhere from about 8 to about 15 in the morning, so it's fresh, but with a long sleeve underneath, it's perfectly warm, and it's been great. So thank you for watching. I'm glad you guys stuck it out to the end of this one. Please leave a like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here, and comment if you want to see me make anything, or if you're interested in learning something, let me know, and see you next time.